The city's railway station bustled with the usual chaotic energy. Amidst the throng of hurried commuters, a familiar figure sat hunched, his weathered hands outstretched. This was Raja, a beggar known to many for his persistent pleas. One day, a sharply dressed man, his suit gleaming under the station's harsh lights, caught Raja's eye. The man looked prosperous, a potential goldmine for Raja's empty stomach. Raja approached, his usual rehearsed plea on his lips. "Sir, please, spare some change for a hungry man," he croaked, his voice raspy from years of begging. The man, instead of immediately reaching for his wallet, fixed Raja with a steady gaze. "You always beg," he observed, his tone calm but firm. "Do you ever give anything to anyone?" Raja blinked, taken aback. The question was unexpected, a twist in his usual routine. "Sir," he stammered, "I'm a beggar." "I take, I don't give." The businessman nodded slowly. "Then you have no right to ask?" he stated, a hint of sadness in his voice. "I'm a businessman. I believe in transactions. If you have something to offer, then I might give something in return." With that, the businessman boarded his train, leaving Raja in stunned silence. The words echoed in his mind. A transaction. He had always been on the receiving end, a passive recipient of charity. He had never considered giving anything in return. But the businessman's words struck a chord, planting a seed of introspection. That night, under the cold gaze of the city lights, Raja contemplated his situation. He couldn't offer money, but what else did he possess? He had skills, he could mend shoes, clean, even tell stories. Perhaps, he thought, he could offer a service in exchange for food. Maybe, just maybe, he could finally break free from the endless cycle of begging, transforming his existence from passive reception to active participation in the flow of giving and receiving. The businessman's words had not only challenged his way of life, but also ignited a spark of hope, a chance for a new beginning. He resolved to try a different approach the following day, a path that involved not just taking, but also giving, a transaction of a different kind. The beggar, Raju, sat hunched on the dusty ground near the station, his stomach aching with emptiness. He'd been pondering a question for days. How could he repay the kindness of those who gave him alms? He was a beggar. What did he have to offer? 2 days of fruitless contemplation had left him despairing. Then, on the third day, his gaze fell upon a vibrant patch of flowers blooming near the station's platform. An idea bloomed in his mind, as bright as the blossoms themselves. He would give flowers in return for alms. He carefully plucked a handful of the cheerful blooms. That day, as he sat begging, each coin received was met with a grateful offering of a flower. People smiled, touched by the simple gesture. Word spread. Soon, Raju found himself surrounded by people eager to give him alms in exchange for these beautiful tokens. He diligently plucked flowers each morning, his small offering creating a ripple of joy. He was earning more than ever before, yet a new problem emerged. He couldn't keep up with the demand. The patch of flowers near the station was dwindling, and when he ran out, his alms dwindled too. This became his daily cycle, a flurry of generosity followed by a desperate emptiness. One day, a tall man, his face etched with kindness, boarded the train. Raju recognized him, the man who had inspired his idea. The man looked at Raju, his eyes filled with understanding. He didn't give Raju alms, but he gave him something far more valuable, a seed, a single, small seed, which held the promise of a whole new garden. Raju planted the seed with hope, tending to it diligently. In time, it grew into a magnificent bush, its flowers more abundant than any he'd ever seen. His act of kindness had blossomed into something even more beautiful, a symbol of hope and generosity that blossomed from a simple act of gratitude. A beggar, weathered and worn, sat at the train station, his usual spot. One day, a tall man in a sharp suit boarded the train. The beggar, emboldened by a sudden idea, approached him. "Sir," he began, his voice raspy but hopeful, "I have flowers to give you today. If you give me alms, I'll give you the flowers in return." The businessman, intrigued by the unusual offer, gave the beggar some money. The beggar, in turn, presented him with a small bouquet of wildflowers. The businessman smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Wow," he exclaimed, "what a clever idea. You're a businessman now, just like me." He took the flowers and exited the train at his stop. But his words echoed in the beggar's mind, resonating deeply. The beggar, usually resigned to his fate, felt a spark ignite within him. He repeated the businessman's words over and over. A businessman just like me. His eyes, once dull with despair, shone with a newfound determination. He felt a surge of hope, a key to a different life unlocking within his heart. He hopped off the train, his heart pounding with excitement. He looked up at the sky and declared, his voice loud and clear, "I am not a beggar. I am a businessman. I can be rich." People stared, some whispering that he'd lost his mind, but the beggar no longer cared. He vanished from his usual spot. 6 months later, at the same train station, 2 impeccably dressed men in suits and polished boots met by chance. One extended a hand. "Do you recognize me?" he asked. The other man shook his head. "No, I believe we're meeting for the first time." The first man chuckled. "No, we've met before. This is actually our 3rd encounter." The train rattled, a rhythmic counterpoint to the quiet conversation unfolding between 2 men. One, impeccably dressed in a suit and polished boots, sat opposite a man whose clothes, though clean, spoke of a life lived on the margins. The well-dressed man, let's call him Mr. Sharma, smiled gently. "I don't remember, by the way, when we met twice before." The other man, a former beggar, now a successful flower trader, chuckled. "We met twice before on this very train. I'm the same beggar you gave advice to the first time. You told me what I should do in life, and the second time you told me who I really was." Mr. Sharma's eyes widened in recognition. "Oh, I remember. You're the beggar I gave alms to once. I refused your alms the first time, but the second time, I bought some flowers from you. But where are you going today? In that suit and boots? What are you doing these days?" The flower trader, let's call him Rohan, leaned forward, a hint of pride in his voice. "Yes, I'm the same beggar. But today, I'm a big flower trader. I'm going to another city for business. In our first meeting, you told me about the rule of nature, that we only get something when we give something. That rule of transaction really works." He felt it deeply. He paused, lost in thought. "But I always considered myself a beggar. I never thought I could rise above it. When I met you the second time, you told me I had become a businessman. Then I understood. I had become a businessman, not a beggar. I understood why people gave me so much alms. They weren't giving alms, they were paying for the flowers. Everyone bought my flowers, because where else could they get them so cheap? I was a small businessman in their eyes, but a beggar in my own." Rajan, a young man with calloused hands and a hopeful heart, eked out a meager living selling flowers on the train. He'd gather blooms from the roadside, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the gray city landscape, and offer them to commuters with a shy smile. One day, a tall, impeccably dressed businessman boarded the train. He noticed Rajan and, instead of dismissing him, engaged him in conversation. He listened intently as Rajan spoke of his dreams of owning a flower shop, of providing for his family. The businessman, a shrewd entrepreneur himself, saw potential in the young man's dedication. He didn't offer money, but something far more valuable: advice. He shared his own journey, the struggles and triumphs, emphasizing the importance of self-belief and the power of positive thinking. He explained how his own success stemmed not from luck, but from a persistent belief in his abilities and a willingness to take calculated risks. He encouraged Rajan to see himself not as a humble flower seller, but as a budding entrepreneur. He pointed out the value in Rajan's current work, urging him to view his flower sales not as a means to an end, but as a foundation for a larger enterprise. He suggested that Rajan might consider buying in bulk, taking advantage of wholesale prices, and expanding his customer base beyond the train commuters. The businessman's words resonated deeply with Rajan. He left the train that day not just with a few extra coins, but with a transformed perspective. He started small, using his savings to buy more flowers. He learned about different varieties, their care, and their market value. He began to network with other flower sellers, learning from their experiences and building relationships. Slowly but surely, his small enterprise grew. He secured a small stall at the local market, then a larger one. He invested in a small delivery van, expanding his reach. Word of his beautiful, fresh flowers spread, and his business boomed. Years later, Rajan, now a successful florist with multiple shops, often recalled the encounter on the train. He understood that the businessman's gift was not merely financial, but a gift of confidence, a belief in his potential that transformed his life. He learned that success wasn't about the size of your starting point, but the size of your dreams, and the unwavering belief in your ability to achieve them. He made sure to share this wisdom with others, paying it forward, just as the businessman had done for him.